Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I'm the customer service manager at QuickLock, as well as the vice chair of the Washington chapter of Women in Manufacturing Board. This is the third event in our Lunch and Learn series, and we had over 50 people registered. So I want to thank you all for spending your lunch hour with us, learning about 3 ways to stop workplace gossip. Our next Lunch and Learn will be on the topic multi-generations in the workforce, and we are planning to host that in Q2, so keep an eye out for that posting. For this event, we are requesting that you please stay on mute, but feel free to enter any questions you may have into the chat, and Lacey will either answer them throughout the presentation as she has time, or at the end during the Q&A session. Also, please note that this event is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube at a later date. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our presenter today, Lacey Nelson. She is the founder of Transcend Leadership Collective, where she coaches leaders and executives to higher levels of clarity and self-awareness through practical frameworks and engaging results-driven training. Lacey, you can take it from here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. I am really excited to dive into this material with you. And as you have questions that pop up, please do drop them in the chat. Caitlin is going to help me out, and I'm terrible at watching the chat and presenting. So she's going to be the chat watcher and make sure that we don't miss anybody. And that's how that's going to run. And I'm going to also leave time at the end to answer any questions that were left unanswered and do some Q&A. So here we go. All right. 3 ways to stop the workplace gossip spiral. First of all, I just want to acknowledge that almost every workplace I've ever been in, scratch that, every workplace I've ever been in, been a part of, gossip is part of the fabric. And what's helpful to understand is why it happens. But before we even jump into that, because when we know the why, then we can kind of reroute a little bit. Before though, we jump into that, I want to go over what isn't gossip. So we're going to start with what is just healthy, normal, because sometimes that line gets very gray, right? Not all third-party conversation is gossip, and healthy organizations still need to dialogue. So where do you find that space? So here, problem-solving conversations. When the goal of the conversation is to gain clarity or alignment or a solution, even if it involves the behavior of someone else, and it stays in that goal around clarity, alignment, and solution, but not stepping over into character attack, you're probably in safe territory. So I have some quotes, some examples. I'm struggling with how to approach this situation with Mark. Can you help me think through it? That's a lot different with like than the approach of, God, can you believe he did that again? See the tonal difference there? So a lot of this is nuanced, and we're gonna really walk through some of that nuance and how it plays out. So the key difference focuses on behavior and outcomes, not on character or shame. It's not about talking about this person's character or how they're an idiot or all of those lovely things that lie underneath in the subtext of our tone. Second, escalating to the right person. So when you share a concern with someone who has responsibility and authority to address it, so if you're talking to your manager, if you're asking someone that's a mentor, can you help me walk through this? You're talking about it to HR, and you're concerned about, you have a concern about this is how it's affecting the team, or you're not sure how to approach the conversation, or you're honestly just frustrated and you need to vent. If you're escalating it to the right person, that's not gossip. That isn't gossip either. Third is when you're seeking coaching. So when you're looking for support on how to have a direct conversation, and you need to spill all the details because you need to figure out how to have this conversation and you need them to understand the layers of it. Also not gossip. So intent does matter when it comes to the place you're coming from, because there's so much in our tone and our body language that lies underneath what tips something over into gossip. So, questions so far on what is not gossip. Caitlin, we got anything?
Nothing in the chat yet, but if
All
anyone
right.
wants to come off mic really quick and ask a question, feel free.
Okay. What is gossip? All right. Now, how do we know what it is? Talking about someone instead of to them, pretty good clue it's gossip. Again, if you're trying to do it in the context of the above that we just went through, that's different. But if you're just, can you believe how that person handled that call? Or sometimes it's not that outright snarky. It can be like, oh, yeah, they were at it again. Those little snide comments. And you're never bringing the issue to the person in any attempt to like resolve or change behavior, probably gossip. Sharing information that isn't yours to share. Don't tell stories that aren't yours to tell. So, example, if you've heard somebody's on a PIP, or if ooh, did you know so and so's getting divorced? Um, these are things that outside of the context of what we already talked about, and you're just saying it for the sake of saying it, for the sake of spreading, of getting that dopamine hit, which we're going to talk about, not great. Venting with no intention to solve. Venting one or two times, yeah, we're going to go into this deeper later. Venting three, four, five, six, you're still talking to me about this person that you cannot stand, and you've done nothing to move the relational needle, nothing to try to resolve it. This no longer is just an innocent venting. This is now crossing the line into gossip, into complaining without ownership of action. Um, it's quotes that are like, oh God, this place is such a mess, or oh, it's always like this around here, or leadership never knows what they're doing. Like, again, venting is okay a couple times. When it becomes a repeated pattern, that's not great. Speculating about motives or character. Oh, this one we're all guilty of because we're humans. We try to fill in the blanks and make reasons why we think people are doing things instead of focusing on the behavior and how it's maybe out of alignment with core values, or it's becomes about what we think they're trying to accomplish. She's only doing that to look good. He doesn't care about the team. They never take accountability for what they're doing, because they just think they're above it. Gossip. Building an alliance through negativity. Also, that us versus them, ooh, it can be so divisive, and it happens so fast. This is where we can start getting pockets of toxicity around in an organization, pockets of like the in and the out, the cool kids club, the favorites, the you're part of, you're on our team, you're not on our team, you're in, you're out. And this is one of the most harmful behaviors because it just reinforces division and siloing. So, questions so far? What is gossip? What is not gossip? Setting the stage. All right. So, why do we gossip? How is it used? Even if we're doing this on a subconscious level, I want to unpack what studies show us about what is underneath it. How is it used? Oftentimes, when we are gossiping ourselves, or someone is gossiping to us, the intent is to gain influence or maintain status. So alliances, exclusion, the in club, the out club, or used to challenge power, but not in a direct way. It's an undermining way. So usually one of those three things is at the root. So we are all about root cause analysis, right? It is the same thing when we're working with people. We want to get to what is underneath. And so we can think about, and even as we think about ourselves and try to be really honest and look in the mirror and get a little uncomfortable of what is my underlying intention in this? Am I trying to control the narrative? Or is a person utilizing this gossip to try to control a narrative, to try to maintain status, or to try to undermine authority. Now, the reason to do this is going to be clear as we get to the later part of the presentation when we're going to start going over some, okay, now we have this information. So now what? We're going to get to those steps. But when you can start to diagnose where it might be coming from, you're going to be able to better apply some of the tools we're going to learn here in a little bit. So research shows us that gossip functions as reputational currency. And in environments with unclear authority, lack of clarity around accountability, or lack of ability for people to speak to the leadership structure in a way that they feel like they're actually being heard, those are often the underlying factors that are creating this environment where gossip can actually, where it thrives, because they're using gossip as a lever to get these, to create these opportunities for communication that don't have a healthy way to be on-ramped for. They don't know how to do it a healthy way. It hasn't been modeled, it hasn't been shown, it hasn't been created intentionally or unintentionally in the environment. Okay. Anybody having any aha moments, questions, comments, concerns so far? All right. You guys are going easy on me. So easy. All right. So I hope some of my fellow millennials, elder millennials, I'm a Gen X, right on the cusp, appreciate this slide. We know that it's bad. We know that gossip is bad. So why do we do it anyway? And when I'm talking about this, I don't want to pretend that any one of us on this call, including myself, are above giving into this urge. And it helps me if I understand why I do it, right? The awareness is the first step, becoming more aware. And then it also helps me understand how to be a better leader for other people around me, reporting to me. If I can go, oh, what is happening? Like if I can take a step out of this and take it from a 30,000-foot view. This is why we do it. Number one, it triggers a dopamine release in the brain. It literally feels good. All right. So we want those happy chemicals flowing in our brains when we do it, even though the consequences later might not feel good. It's that in the moment hit, like you get a chemical release when you gossip. It happens. The second reason that we do it is it fills a vacuum when transparency is missing. That whole creating a narrative. It's not knowing the whole story, so we make up the story. So when we create environments where we're not telling people, giving people all of the information that we can, and I recognize in some situations, people aren't going to be privy to the whole story. But when we're really lacking in, and nor should they be, but when we're really lacking in communication and we're not transparent, people spin and create narrative because that is what we are designed to do. We are designed, our brains need meaning. Humans are creatures of story and meaning. We have had the written word for about 1 second of being alive, being a species. We have had the ability to tell oral story, create story, oral tradition for since we could talk, right? So we need that meaning, we need that story, and verbally transmitting it is the way that we are wired to do it. And if we are not given meaning, we will create meaning. So if we are not given meaning around something, for example, if there is whispers of we're not going to meet budget this year, but no one is in leadership is stepping forward and filling in, okay, that's what this is practically going to mean. Even if part of it isn't great to hear, there's all kinds of stories that are going to get made up about it. It can be if someone leaves the team and there's not a respecting boundaries, right? Like you can't put everybody's business out there, but if there's just no acknowledgement, and speculation is going to fly. So the other thing that happens is why we do it is that we build in groups by creating out groups. This is about belonging. So if there is not an intentional, this happens at the individual leadership management level with your own team. So if you're leading people and you are part of a team and you are not creating ways for them to anchor to your team, as we are all a unit, we are all together, we are connected, we care about each other, we're a team, and you're not creating that sense of belonging within your group, you're setting up the opportunity is ripe for people want to belong to something. And if it's not provided for them, they're going to create it. So creating that opportunity for anchoring in small groups. People do not anchor to entire companies. That is not how it works, as much as we would like that to happen. They anchor to their team, to their group, or they create their own group.
Lacey, we have two really great questions in the chat.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so the first one is it bad to feed the gossip chain with accurate information? Often I find that
Mm.
people like to talk and guess rather than seek the correct information.
That is great. And I would say feeding the gossip chain with the right information isn't even necessarily gossip. It's like a corrective action to it. So um what you can do is say, oh, feeding it would be like, oh, I know, and I heard that this is what's actually going on, versus the tone of, oh man, I can understand. There hasn't been a lot of clarity around that, but let me tell you what I know for sure is what I know within my purview is what's happening. And then let them run with it from there. So tone is really important because if you like drop into that conspiratorial, it's not as effective at stopping the cycle as if you present the information factually, because part of what we have to do is like interrupt that dopamine, right? That dopamine rush. Is that helpful?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we have one other really good one too right now.
Okay.
So it says, when you talk about unclear authority and leadership environment being more conducive to lots of gossip, it seems like it would be an easy excuse to say, well, my manager created this environment. What could I possibly do about it? I wonder
Mm.
how non-management can help manage up and create a gossip-free culture. Any advice?
Great question. And yes, we're getting there. So if we can give me like 5 more minutes, and if I don't answer it, we'll come back to it. But yes, absolutely, there is a way that you can manage up strategically and that you can help that. And lack of authority, lack of clarity, also it's different types of conflict. Status conflict is one of them. And status conflict is when people aren't sure what their lane is. They know what their job title is, but they don't understand, or the rest of the team doesn't have clarity around what exactly they're accountable to, who's doing what, who is every project that you're working on. You can go through this process of building out an accountability chart by project. And that can take away some of that lack of clarity and lack of authority, and what it's either actions get perceived as hyper aggressive, stepping on toes, or passive aggressive and walking on eggshells. If those things are happening, looking at where do we have lack of clarity and who is accountable to what is a good place to start. That's kind of a roundabout answer, but I am going to directly speak to building in more clarity and managing up in about 4 slides. So all right. So before speaking, and this is something you can share with your team, before speaking, ask yourself, is this information mine to share? Like someone's getting a divorce, or like their, personal information. Is this a story that is yours to share? And when you have people coming to you and asking you, have you heard this? Do you know that? Do you know this? You can know all the tea, all the tea. And all you got to tell them is, that's not my story to tell. You need to be talking to so and so. That's a quick redirect on that one. Um, would I say that would I say this if the person were here? So a way to check yourself when you are venting is the way that yes, you can slam the door and sometimes you just need to shut that door and let it all loose. But when you're on like round 3 and you're not really trying to problem solve, are you actually speaking the way you would speak if that person was standing in front of you. And if you aren't, well, maybe you need to check that. Is my goal resolution or release? Like I said, the above, sometimes you do need to just release, but when you're releasing over and over and over again, and you're not actually releasing it because you're revisiting it, you're building resentment, it's impacting the relationship with that person, it's changing the way that you feel about them. And that vibe and that weirdness is going to come in because you're going to look at them and smile, but inside you're going to be like, here we go again, another day with so and so, and you're actually building up that resentment and you think you're releasing, but if it is coming up again and again, you're not. You're not. Um, am I contributing to trust or eroding it? So these are some questions you can ask yourself. You can talk to your team. So we wonder, like, okay, we know all this. We go into organizations, we teach workshops, we work with teams, we help them identify who they want to be, what's getting in the way of them fully fulfilling it. And some of the things that we see where people are trying to tackle gossip, but they're not going after the right root cause is like, well, we had everyone sign a memo or sign a memo of understanding that they're not going to gossip. Well, without the proper education around what do you do, how do you have conversations, like that is an empty attempt, right? You need people to have the tools to know what to do instead. And so this is what I really want to make sure that I camp here and spend some time with you guys on. How do we redirect others when people are coming to us and they are, and we, or maybe it even is our boss? These are some things, some phrases that you can say. So name the power play, right? So if someone is gossiping and they are just saying, well, I heard this, I heard that, you can quickly interject with, after you hear them out, you know what? It sounds like this information is being used to make somebody look bad. Like, this is not fair to Bob. I think we should probably bring him in on this. They're either going to stop talking right away or they're going to go, yeah, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's try to solve it. So these are redirects where you're not just shutting people down, but you're flipping the script. You're changing what the intention of the conversation is. You can push the conversation from gossiping, triangulation to, instead of talking about someone, we want to talk with someone. Um, and you can do this by like just that redirect of let's bring them in, or have you talked with them directly about this issue if you're not in an appropriate position to bring another person in for a conversation, but really calling out like this person, nobody's asking them, like how about we bring them into the conversation? So calling out triangulation without judgment, but with clarity, right? So you're not judging, you're not being like, oh, you're just trying to make this person's life terrible, or whatever you want, you may think that underlying motivation is. It's just simply calling out, hey, it sounds like this is like an accusation or information that is being used to make them look really bad. Let's get to the bottom of this. We probably should include them in this conversation. Have you had a conversation with them um, about this directly? So that's some ways you can work that one. Another way you can shift the dynamic is when they're really venting to you. Let's say it's the third time, right? That's usually my limit. Like, okay, you can vent once, you can vent twice. I'm not going to feed the beast. Listening to a vent does not, to someone vent does not mean you have to feed the beast. And by feed the beast, I mean get in that conspiratorial stance where you are throwing in your own frustrations and your own insults and your own take on the situation. But it means you are listening and you're like, oh man, I could, if I had that, if I saw it the way you see it from your perspective, I'd be really frustrated too. You can empathize with the individual a couple of times, but by like the third time that they're bringing it up again, the same person with the same frustration about this person, that's where you can push the dynamic from being this we did a series on this topic and we called it the gossip zombie. So from that gossip zombie bite, you can flip the dynamic into like a real-time conversation of what would you say if they were in the room right now? And that can just do a little push of like, and you can even acknowledge this is the third time you've come in and talked to me about this, and it looks like you need something more than venting. Like this is becoming something that's sticking with you. What would you say to them if they were here right now? And you can start moving the needle a little bit towards problem solving instead of just uh continuing to like feed that spiral. And then another another way to approach it is thinking about inviting collaboration instead of exclusion. So this is where you can invite that person that say that somebody is venting or they're talking about another person or there's or sometimes they're really frustrated with something that's going on and they feel completely powerless, but they're just really mad at leadership or they can't believe this decision was being made and they are disgusted and exasperated and it is not coming across in a way that's building towards anything other than just feeding that monster of discontent. This is where you can really lean into the empathy and say, you know what? It sounds like you really care about this. And newsflash, they do. The opposite of and when we're hearing this or find ourselves in these seats, it's a good reminder to remember that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy. The opposite of care and connection is apathy and disconnection. It's not a passionate rebuttal or frustration or disgust. You still have to care and be invested to go to those places emotionally. So recognizing it even and that helps me in my mindset to go, okay, I get frustrated sometimes having to listen to what I feel like is gossip or I feel like is drama, and then I have to remind myself even if they're not presenting it with the most adept level of skill, they do care. They care. They wouldn't be this worked up about it if they didn't care. So I'm going to lean into like, hey, it sounds like you really care about this and it's really bothering you. What are some ways you think we could like bring this to the surface and get some answers that are going to feel essentially safe for you? Like not feel like it's going to cause collateral damage or fallout. And then you can help them again, pushing towards a step forward, not just sitting in the muck and the mire of the situation. And then also creating a culture of candor. Okay, so people reading the book Radical Candor but not having the skills to apply it was like a nightmare when that book came out. I don't know if anyone else caught the fallout from that. I had a lot of people in my life that were like sending me messages, help me. My boss just read Radical Candor and it is a nightmare around here right now. So, I want to emphasize emotional intelligence is important to partners alongside of radical candor. So you want to have regular check-ins, direct feedback, and clarity because those are the things that are going to create that environment where gossip isn't the only outlet. Okay, I talked a lot about these redirects. Questions, or if anyone has a real time that they want to surface real time or this just happened, what's a better way, a scenario, you can change the names to protect the guilty and I'm happy to go through it with you.
We've got one in the chat from a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
What are some examples of providing opportunities for people to anchor to the teams?
I love that. Okay, great practical question. So one of the things that first of all, I like every person on my team to actually believe I like them. That sounds really basic, but it is so fundamental to human belonging. How many of you, like, you can raise your digital hands? How many of you are watching the drama of that sad little monkey that is getting kicked out of the club online? Do we have any hands up, or am I the only one watching that? Okay, okay, good. Whew. All right, we've got a few. So there's this, for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, if you want your heart broken, go look it up. It's on Instagram and I don't know where else, but there's this little monkey that his mom abandoned him and rejected him when he was born. And then like the rest of the monkey group, I think it's in Japan, is rejecting him as well. And they gave him this stuffed animal. He's in a zoo, I think. They gave him this stuffed animal to carry around and replace his mom. And it is heart-wrenching watching him try to belong to this group, and they just keep pushing him away. But I'll tell you, unless something has changed, those are fellow monkey watchers. I think a mama may have adopted him. He has at least a friend. So does he, those that are also watching, am I right? Does he actually still have a mama friend? I haven't checked in a couple days. I don't know. Anyways, it's very traumatic. But we all want to belong. We really want to belong. And that is a fundamental, even animalistic, like that is, and we need to believe that people like us and they want us to be around. So, one of the things that you can do is make sure that your team actually believes you like them. And it starts with a very little simple things like, hi, glad to see you today. Or, hey, I really, even just really telling them, I really appreciate this about you. Not necessarily every day. You don't want to love bomb them, but they need to know that you don't just appreciate the work that they produce, but you actually genuinely, and they need to believe it, like who they are. And that goes a long way. Another step in creating that opportunities for anchoring is you may you may not run the whole company, but you may have your team and run your team. And even within your team, why I say not the whole company, you need to have be a vision caster. Yes, you need to tie it to the vision of the organization, but take that opportunity within your own team to create even micro cultures in alignment with the core values of the big culture, right? We don't want to be creating businesses within businesses that are misaligned. That is not what I'm suggesting. But how do we treat each other as a team? What do we want to be known for? What do we want? What would we want other people from the outside to look at our team and go, ooh, I want to be part of that team? Having those kinds of discussions with your team can help cast that vision collectively for this is who we want to be. This is how we want to operate. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but we know we have this common goal of this is what we want the experience when you're working with us, when you're on our team. This is what we want it to be like. Are those two things helpful?
Yeah, that was amazing. And I love that because as a leader, you might have this idea of what you want your team to be represented by, but if you're not sharing it with them, they might not necessarily know what your vision is and how you want to be represented together. So I do have another question that popped up in the chat.
Great.
What are some ways to navigate create a culture of candor when the leader is the culprit or is contributing to gossip and allowing it to continue among the members?
Okay. Good question. So, culture of candor, again, what I just said about creating your own dynamic within your own team of expectations that are in alignment with core values of the organization on paper. So, even if the leader is not necessarily following them, um, you can create that within your own team of this is the expectation. We don't talk about each other, we talk to each other. And then utilizing with the leader themselves a culture of candor, direct feedback, clarity, preventing gossip from becoming the only outlet. I don't know what the situation is with the leader. Is the leader aware they're even doing this? Is it a massive blind spot for them? There's as every person in our line of work, we're going to say it depends and ask a million questions. And if anyone gives you blanket answers, run away. But it does depend. It depends on, are they aware of it? Do they know? Do they understand the impact that it's having? Has anyone told them? Is there anyone that speaks truth to power? Is it safe to talk to them? Do you have an environment where people feel like they can bring these things up, right? I'm going to have a different answer depending on how those questions are answered, but let's imagine it isn't a safe environment. You don't feel like you can bring it up without there being repercussions that are not even necessarily ethical. What the heck do you do then? Well, I mean, I realize I will say you want to work somewhere that's psychologically safe because it will take its toll on you over time. It will. I also recognize we have to pay our bills and it's not always easy to make a move quickly. And so what are you going to do in the meantime, right? How are you going to navigate that? You can do what you can only do so much, but you can do it within your own team and do what you can to create that psychological safety within your own team by some of the things that we just talked about above. Um, and it is uh, creating that environment. Now, if you have a boss that is open, but they have a blind spot, it'll feel super scary. But you can ask them. I always ask for permission. And that is a good way, even this is just a rule in human communication in general. I don't care who you're talking to. Just dumping unsolicited advice on people, no one likes that. But when you take a pause to say, hey, can I share something with you that I've observed? And I might be a little off the mark, but I really feel like I need to let you know this is what I'm observing, and you can help me check if I'm interpreting it right or wrong. You then have given permission or asked for permission to speak into a situation that can be kind of a difficult, touchy area to speak into. And that's where if you have a boss that maybe just has a blind spot, this is where you can bring to them, hey, I don't know if you're aware of the impact, and I'm trusting your intentions are good. But when X, Y, and Z, when you say this or this happens, this is the way it plays out down the line. And I don't think that's what you're intending, but I do feel like bringing it to your attention is, what I owe you. We want to have this open candor and this open dialogue and communication. Again, you have to have a psychologically safe environment to be able to do that. But I would say most of us in the seats of leadership, if someone brought something to us that way, boy, I mean, yeah, it's going to sting a little bit. It's going to hurt the ego, but dang, it's going to help us so much in the long run to be better at what we're doing and understand intentional out of alignment with impact is like huge. And if you are a leader, you can ask your people, where are the spots that I don't see? Where do my good intentions don't matter, but what the impact is? Like the I can have all the best intentions in the world, but if my impact is causing division or frustration or the communication isn't clear, like you can invite them to give you that feedback, but you have to be that explicit. Because how many people are going to instigate and raise their hand for the conversation I just laid out without a valid, like wide open invitation to do it? Not very many, because it feels very risky. All right. Any other questions or follow up?
There's nothing else in the chat at the moment. Would anybody like to come off their mic and ask a question?
Tricky topic when you know it's recorded too. I understand. So let's talk about, and I touched on this, gossip really is a symptom of a deeper root issue. So gossip is going to thrive in environments where people don't feel safe addressing issues directly, like I just said. So this is where you can take an inventory of how many opportunities. Just simply stating I have an open door policy is not going to cut it. If it did, we wouldn't have the work we have at the Transcend Leadership Collective helping teams. And I will say, I work with a lot of leaders, a lot of executives, a lot of midline and frontline supervisors, and I have never met a single one that has been intentionally malicious. Are they out there? I'm sure they are. I'm sure they exist. I'm just saying I've never met one. Oftentimes, people just don't understand how direct you have to be when you are in a position of authority with offering and inviting the things that are hard for you to hear, that maybe might feel a little scary for you to hear. But gossip is typically a symptom where people don't feel safe addressing issues directly. That is one of the things that can be going on. The second thing that can be going on is accountability is inconsistent. It can be a symptom of where some people are feeling like they are getting nailed for things, and other people are being allowed to just skate on by without being accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. So, in a really practical way that we see this play out is a manufacturing environment we have worked in has had a situation where they had like chronic tardiness. And some people were getting written up over and over for tardiness, and other people were like, well, wait a minute, like, not everyone is getting this enforced equally. How is this even fair? And in some environments, okay, we're going to say, like, sometimes it's an issue where someone has a pass to come in later because they've talked with HR and their boss and they're like, I don't know, helping their mom get to chemo appointments or something, right? Like, that's not what was happening here. What was happening is that there had on the line, different supervisors had different grace windows of what they accepted as, like, I'm going to let you slide in under the line versus I'm absolutely not going to let it fly. You are going to be written up for being tardy if you're 2 minutes late. I don't care. And others were like 10-minute grace window. That is so wildly inconsistent. And no one's intentionally trying to create this chaos for their workers, but that's what's happening. And then gossip, just you can imagine, and I'm sure some of you lived through how it like spins out of control, even with little things like that. So it's finding where do we have inconsistencies, and that group actually recognized, oh my gosh, we need to do a reset with all of the line supervisors, the shift supervisors themselves, the people down on the floor were like, they came together, the leaders from the floor, and came up with like, where are the areas we need to reset? We're going to take ultimate accountability and reset with our teams. Um, Anything come up in the chat?
Yes, there was a comment that says another example of inconsistencies could be return to work and in-office
Yes.
requirements, and that's a major one.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So first is just asking, you can always ask the question of what is the company-wide policy? Is it like department by department? And the department decides, is it unique to not even department, but supervisor by supervisor? Like it, how is that being decided? And understanding when there's inconsistencies, you're opening yourself up to more. But another thing to think about is that people, when they're like, that's not fair, and this is a conflict resolution issue. Oftentimes, they don't want exactly what the other person wants or other person needs. What they want is the knowledge that if they have need an exception to have a need met, that they have that opportunity, that you will be flexible with them too, should the need arise. So if you were to ask that person, do you want to come in 10 minutes late every day too? They're going to tell you no, most likely. Maybe they say yes, but they're going to most likely be like, no, that's not. But they want to know that should something come up, that they can have that flexibility. And what often we just see is people saying, well, that's their business. You let me worry about it with them. And we shut the conversation down there instead of, or they're working from home today. That's their business. You let me, that's between me and them. We're going to talk about what's between me and you. And we shut it down there instead of taking the extra step of saying, yep, you are observing that. And what need do you have for work from home that currently isn't being met? Or where do you feel like you need something? And I can't promise you I'm going to be able to deliver, but I do want to hear what you're hoping will be your situation that isn't your situation right now. And sometimes we can deliver and sometimes we can't. But just giving them that ability to ask directly and to acknowledge that there is, at least sometimes there are reasons, if there's good ones, for accountability inconsistencies without launching into airing people's very private information that honestly nobody should be airing anyway. So, did that help with that question?
I think it did personally, and I love the idea of learning what the company department like expectations are before assuming. And I think that would help too, because people always feel better if they know the why behind what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And saying this is policy is a way to shut down the gossip too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the The next one, leaders tolerating triangulation. Gossip is a symptom of triangulation tolerance, and that's when you've got somebody who's playing mom and dad against each other. Essentially, that is the easiest way to explain how triangulation works. Um, when you have that he said, she said, he said, and the chaos tornado, it's when that doesn't get shut down and just gets tolerated and not called on the carpet with a lot of those interjections that I put that we went through above with those redirects. A way to cut that off is to immediately say, it sounds like we need to bring everybody together and get some clarity around this issue. And then all of a sudden they're going to be fine. Or you're going to get to moving it through the stages it needs to move through to get to an understanding of what is tolerated and not tolerated when it comes to that behavior. Uh, if you have a conflict avoidant workplace or a conflict avoidant boss, if that is a norm, gossip's going to run hot because we're not dealing with issues, we're brushing them under the rug. We all know they don't go away. They just fester in these pockets. And so conflict avoidance, there's three types of conflict, right, in the workplace that show up. There's multiple approaches, and this is literally a whole nother webinar, but there's multiple approaches to solving those different kinds of conflict. But if you're avoiding conflict, if people are avoidant, conflict avoidant, and they are running, especially if they're running a team, oh my gosh, you're setting the stage because that pressure release valve is going to be gossip. It's going to happen, guaranteed, if you are not crafting that valve through dealing with and learning how to have open, collaborative conversations. If you want to reduce gossip, don't start with, like I said, the memo of, hey, everybody, stop gossiping. The first place that you start is building the skills needed for direct, respectful conversation and building them if you are a person on a team or in leadership. It doesn't matter what your title is. If you are someone who considers yourself to be someone who wants to set the standard in a positive way, and if you came to this webinar, you're probably one of those people. You want to start building your own skills and being honest with yourself about where am I unintentionally maybe feeding this beast, and or where am I, what on this list of underlying causes am I maybe not giving enough attention to within my own team? And where can I potentially manage up in some of these instances, or at least bring it to my boss's attention? Did something else drop in the chat?
Yes. Pamela dropped something. She said, I think all of us are sitting here saying, yes, yes, amen, yes. And it's humbling to reflect on. I think I recently gossiped when trying to encourage a newer employee, sharing poor metrics on how others that have left the company performed. I didn't say it maliciously, but I wouldn't say it if they were standing here either. And
Mm,
that, yeah, wow, that's huge because it does help us look through it through a different lens.
yeah, yeah. And I think too, yes, like that's a fine line, right? Like you want to motivate, but would you have done it in the same way if they were standing right there? Um, yeah, I think too, we can say things like, okay, here's the bar, if especially if they're competitive and they're like motivated by competition, like here's the bar you got to beat, go, and not demean that other person. Like there's, again, this is all very nuanced, but always checking your intentions behind your comments. Is big. That goes a long way if we check ourselves first.
I really like that example on how to reframe it. So
Mm.
I'll take that going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So I would love to take more questions. That is the extent of the information I have today, but gosh, I can talk about people stuff all day long. So I know we're coming up on the end of our time. And before I say, all right, throw them all at me, I just wanted to make sure I say thank you. And we at Transcend Leadership Collective do have a free webinar series that we're doing right now that's actually about conflict. So we just had our first one. We're doing one per quarter. They're totally free. They're not infomercials with an upsell at the end, I promise. So just come check them out, get some good quality information. You can get more of a flavor for who we are, and we'd love to learn more about you. And if there's any way we can serve you or your teams, reach out. I'm very active on LinkedIn, easy place to find me. And I am one of, I think, two or three that spell their name Layci, so I'm pretty easy to find. Um, before we sign off, and I hand it back over to Caitlin for the official close. Are there any other scenarios, questions? We have a couple minutes, and I really want to make sure people get what they came for today. Anything else that I can work through or insights I can offer?
Okay, I'm not seeing anything else pop up except for some praise to you. Thank you so much for being our guest speaker today on such an important topic. And I wanted to thank everybody again who spent the last hour with us. If you would like more information on WiM, I'm going to be sending an email a little bit later today that has like a feedback survey so that you can let us know what you enjoyed about this event and what we could possibly improve on, but feel free to respond with any questions you might have. And I'd be happy to forward things to Lacey, or again, just find us on LinkedIn. We're very active on there.
Yep.
And make sure to check out the WIM website for more of our upcoming events. I hope
And
you
I'm a
all
WIM member. I'm a WIM member. I'm involved. I'm a WIM member and the chapter leader for Central, so for Washington State. So come hang out with me there too.
Yes, we've got all kinds of awesome events coming up across the state, both virtually and in person. And for those of you that might be new to Women in Manufacturing or the Washington chapter specifically, we're offering events in the Spokane, Seattle, and Yakima areas, just so that we can offer more to our locals, and then also an option to travel for those of you that enjoy, trying something different in a different area. So yes, we would love to help guide, answer any questions, whether WIM, work, personal, anything like that. Like, my favorite part about Women in Manufacturing is just coming together with a network of people that support each other and care about each other. And we'll give you 5 minutes here back. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.